Story 1. I have a sweet snowblower, and I love to help out my neighbors by doing the whole block. I'm that guy. After a moderate snow a few years ago, 6 inches, my neighbor told me that he's very sensitive to noise and not to snowblow in front of his house. Later that same winter, we got 17 inches. I cleared every house on the block, front and back, except for his. Even better, he was out of town. The weather warmed slightly for an afternoon, then dropped again, so his 17 inches of snow became a wall-to-wall glacier. I live in Wisconsin. This is how we entertain ourselves in the winter. Edit. Wow. I thought I was just sharing a little story. Thanks for all the interest. Here's a little more. He was not medically sensitive to sound. If he was, he would have said so, and I would have respected that. I often saw him outside listening to the Milwaukee Brewers on a loud radio as he did yard work with municipal trucks and ambulances rolling by. Also, it was late morning. This is a guy who returned a plate of cookies because he was upset that we didn't know he thinks sugar is evil. He yelled at kids for chalk drawings on the sidewalk. Total jerk. We didn't speak often, and he never mentioned the ice wall. I do not have any photos. Unfortunately, it was hilarious. I even sat on the edge of it and had a beverage with my other neighbor. He moved to Iowa a year or so later. How's this for passive-aggressive? Thank goodness he moved because Iowa might be just nice enough to handle him. Is it malicious compliance, just malicious, or just compliance? I guess that's up to you. Story 2. During my last semester of my bachelor's degree, I already applied for the master's degree at the same university. I went through the normal application process and got accepted, yay. But as I didn't have my bachelor's degree at that point, I had to produce a certified copy of my degree as soon as I could. Yes, I had to give a certified copy of my bachelor's degree to the university that issued that degree in the first place. And no, these were not different departments. It was all done by one lady in the examination office. Whatever, weird bureaucracy is weird. And boy, was it annoying at that university. All the students of my faculty had to go through one lady, and I think she just hated to do anything. Like, seriously, she was so annoyed when you showed up at her office to do anything. When I turned in my bachelor thesis, she straight up said that she is so incredibly annoyed that all the students turn their thesis in at her office. Well, we don't have another choice. There is seriously no other way to turn your thesis in, and don't ever think about asking her anything. So, I was already looking forward to picking up my bachelor's degree. No, we don't have a fancy celebration. Normally you would get an email when your degree is ready, but as she really dislikes our guts, you just have to guess when it is ready. We don't get an email. 2 weeks after your last grade is put in the system, it is probably ready. So, I did just that. I show up at her office, and hooray, my degree is ready. Lady, here. Without even looking at me. Me. Thank you, I need a certified copy of that. Lady, really annoyed, excuse me, what? Me. I need a certified copy. Could you please copy it and certify that it is a copy of the original? Lady, I know what a certified copy is. You can get that at the town hall. Me. I know, but I can also get it here. I know for a fact that you have to give me one if I request it. 5-second staring contest ensues. Lady, sighs, fine. She takes my degree back, turns around, copies it, and signs that it is a certified copy. Lady, hands me the degree and copy, here. Me, thank you. Now I would like to give you a certified copy of my bachelor's degree for my application for the master's degree. I hand her back the certified copy. Lady, are you serious? Me. Yes, I thought if I am already here, I could turn that in as well, so I don't have to come back again. Another 5-second staring contest. The lady just takes the copy out of my hand and turns around. And with that, I left with the biggest grin on my face. What did she expect? That I would go to the town hall 15-minute ride, wait there for probably 1-2 hours, get a certified copy that would cost me 13 euros at university. One was for free, and then come back another day. No way, especially because she had the weirdest office hours ever. It was something like 2 days a week for 1.5 hours in the morning and 1 day for 1.5 hours in the afternoon. so I probably would have waited days to turn that in. But her face when I asked for a certified copy was just glorious. Story 3. Let's call her Karen, just because it fits. She came in and applied for a job, and when I looked at her resume and application, I realized she knew some of my old neighborhood friends and schoolmates. She interviewed well, so I gave her a job. I told her to be in on Monday at 9 a.m. Monday morning, she is not in. She has no calls, no shows. Tuesday, no call, no show. I had now written her off. Wednesday, she shows up about noon. She claims she was in her basement Sunday night, and her brother was working out, and he accidentally knocked her out during his intense workout. She claimed her doctor told her she had a concussion and she should stay home for a couple of days. She had no doctor's note, no marks on her head, but thinking her story was so off the wall, it could almost be true. I let her come to work the next day. She worked Thursday and Friday. We paid at the end of every week, and I gave her a check Friday. I also did not deduct the days she missed. She came to me and asked about the full paycheck. I told her we were a family business and realized people had lives outside work. We tried to make sure people knew they were appreciated and tried to take care of our people. She teared up and thanked me and said we could count on her. She worked the full next week and did okay. She seemed to fit in. The third week, she showed up Monday. The Tuesday was another no-show, no-call. We did not hear from her for over 2 weeks. When she finally showed up, her story was the stuff of legends. She claimed her husband had forged divorce papers a couple of years previous. Thinking she was divorced, she moved back into her parents' house. She claimed her ex-husband was at her parents' house when she got home the last night she worked. He told her he made up the divorce, and the paperwork was phony, so they were still married, and he wanted to get back together. She claimed she refused, and he kidnapped her. She said it took her until a couple of days ago to get away from him. She wanted to come into work the next day. She did not call the police, and he wasn't arrested. There was nothing in the papers or on the news about any of this. She was not hurt, thank goodness. She asked if I believed her. I did not, but told her that I really needed someone I could count on coming in reliably every day. I gave her a paycheck for 1 week she had worked 1 day and told her I wished her good luck. I had already replaced her, and her replacement was one of the best employees we ever had. Here's the malicious compliance. The next month, I came into a phone message that someone from X company called for a reference for Karen. As my secretary is handing me the message, she's laughing at the look on my face. I asked if she was kidding. She said she was not. She said she got a call from a man saying he was the owner of a company in the area, and he asked about Karen. Then my secretary asked if she could listen in on the call. She was a pistol. She then goes and gets my partner and tells him I am going to call and give Karen a reference. Now he is in my office laughing too. I call the guy, and we make some small talk. I tell him what we do, and he tells me what he wants Karen to do for him. I tactfully avoided answering any of his questions about Karen directly. I think he was beginning to suspect something. Remember, folks, employers can get in a ton of trouble for bad references. He finally asked my opinion of Karen, and what I said was, if you can get Karen to work for you, you will be very lucky. He heard what I said and how I said it. He repeated that back to me exactly as I said it. All my words were the right ones. It was my tone and intonation that got my point across. He thanked me and hung up. Karen comes into the office a couple of days later. She looks mad but is trying to be pleasant. She told me she is having trouble finding a job and mentioned she has used me as a reference. She wanted to know if anyone from X company had called me. She knew they did. She told me she really wants the job at X company. I told her I had been called and that I told the guy he'd be lucky to get her to work for him. My secretary confirmed that's what I told him. She told him she was right next to me during the whole conversation. Karen smiled and thanked me and headed to the door. She said she wondered why she was having so much trouble getting a job. She asked if she could continue to use me for a reference, and I told her absolutely. I also told her I'd tell everyone the same thing, that any employer would be lucky if they can get you to work for them. She walked away smiling, happy and clueless. Story 4. A coworker told me this story a few years ago. This happened in the early 2000s. So we are electricians, and he once had something to do at a lawyer's house. You can imagine a big house and a lot of property. Everything was really nice, except on one side of the mound of earth, a long pile of dirt, all the way at the property line. He asked the lawyer about it, and he told him that he hated that neighbor and had once had a 10-foot fence. Well, the neighbor hated him as well and had him tear down the fence since the community regulations only allowed 6.5-foot fences. Since he is a lawyer and a mad lad, he read the regulations, bought a lot of dirt, built this long 6.5-foot pile of dirt, and installed a 6.5-foot fence, exactly as the regulations required. That's what happens if a petty lawyer dislikes you. Story 5. I was reminded of this by some recent stories here about homeowners associations, residential fences, and so on. Hope you enjoy it. My husband and I developed an unpleasant relationship with one of our neighbors, mostly because this lady liked to adopt kittens whom we adore, and then basically throw them outside, where they invaded our backyard and preyed on cute native wildlife like tiny birds, chipmunks, bunnies, and so on. There's a bylaw against this, and we made some use of it while she lived next door. After a couple of years, we found out that she was selling and moving away. Yay! However, she was still mad at us, and she shared her feelings with her real estate agent. The agent thought it over and called the very nice and polite bylaw officer to visit us because the hedge between our two properties was technically too high. It was maybe 6 feet high and needed to be half that. There's no real reason for this rule since we are on the outside of a bend in the road and visibility is fine. But whatever. My husband readily agreed to have at this lush, beautiful green hedge and got out there right away with his heaviest equipment. I quickly realized why he was so cheerful about this big job. As he cut the hedge to half its height, of course, most of the greenery was trimmed away, and the result was a stark and temporarily sad-looking collection of bare branches and twigs. He carefully cleaned up after himself, and we kept an eye out for the agent. We were so lucky to be there when she next arrived and emerged from her car. Let's say that my husband's malicious compliance did not exactly improve the curb appeal of the next-door property. She stood there for some time, then noticed us regarding her from our living room with gratified expressions and marched away. So very satisfying, we still sometimes mention it to each other. Story 6. A friend of mine lived in a pretty big neighborhood with a pretty strict homeowners association. He was the first house at the bottom of the hill that you saw when you drove in. He asked and was allowed to add a garage onto his house and did so, siding it with cedar planks. It looked great. His homeowners association disagreed and told him the bylaws state all exposed walls must be painted. He tried to appeal but was shot down unanimously. So he checked the bylaws further and found that while it was stated that all exposed walls must be painted, there was absolutely no mention of any color restrictions. By the time he was done, each plank was a different primary color, and there was nothing they could do about it. They were furious with him, and he laughed his head off. This was back in the early 90s. The Homeowners Association was created years after the neighborhood had been established. Maybe they assumed no one would use anything but tasteful colors. I don't know and don't care. Story 7. I've been holding on to this one for a while. I used to work for a contractor that did gate security on a military installation. It was my job after separating where I was in the I don't know what to do with my life stage. We checked IDs to allow entry onto the base, and this was before we had digital verification. So match the picture to your face, ensure it's not expired, and ensure it's not an obvious counterfeit. The purpose was simply to verify ID, so we'd often wave people through that we knew. Heck, our boss would be upset if we asked for his ID. But you give an inch and some people take a mile. Some coworkers began waving in people that they started to recognize but didn't really know. This resulted in the expected crackdown to ensure that we would check all IDs. Every single ID. Even the passengers. The driver could not vouch for the passenger if the passenger did not have an ID. During this crackdown, a summer blockbuster from 2011 was filming on our base. I'm at the gate, and a car pulls up. The driver is a major in the Air Force. He has a female passenger who I recognized. Big movie star. He has an ID, she doesn't. I turn them around. Him, Come on, you don't recognize my passenger. Me, playing dumb. No, sir. For all I know, she could be a convict. I cannot name the celebrity due to rule number 2, and that's why I also withheld the name of the movie. I will say that she had served jail time a few years prior, hence my lame joke. The policy was clarified to not include passengers by that very afternoon. I did not get in any trouble. They know who instituted the policy, and they knew the contractors would follow any policy literally. Story 8. I was a responsible kid. Not very popular, didn't socialize much at school. I just went to school, did my work, made good grades, and got the heck out. Well, one day in my freshman English class, the teacher assigned a research paper to be completed over the weekend. She said we could pick any topic we wanted, as long as it had to do with the Elizabethan era. We were supposed to get our topics approved during class that day, but before I could get my topic approved, the teacher decided she had a problem with my cap sleeves. At this time, I didn't know what the heck cap sleeves were. I got my uniform shirt in the uniform section of the uniform store. I explained this, but she still decided to write me up for it and send me to the office, ignoring the more popular girls wearing shirts 2 sizes too small that wouldn't even reach to tuck into their designer pants. I actually don't remember the outcome of the cap sleeves write-up. Trauma does weird things to your memory. But I do remember that I couldn't get my topic approved since I was sent out of class. I tried to talk to her before leaving school, but she made it clear that she was too busy for me. So, I chose to write about torture devices used in the London Tower of Terror during the Elizabethan era, and I made it a long paper, too. Not only did this little old lady have to spend her time reading about unpleasant torture devices, but I also got an A. Story 9. My roommate and I attend a university where we are given 250 pages per semester to print as part of our attendance. Well, we hardly used it since we have our own printer, so we went over to the print room and asked them if we could have our 500 pages. They said that the pages were only for printing and not a quantity of letter paper we were entitled to, so we said okay. We then went to 2 of the computers in the print room, opened Word to a blank document, and printed our pages out. We then walked out with that thick stack of paper without being noticed. There has not been, and there will likely not be any fallout.